My own country now maintains forces trained and equipped, which can be placed at the disposal of the United Nations on short notice for service anywhere in the world.
The idea and concept of the Peacekeepers is a Canadian idea. Lester B. Pearson was the president of the General Assembly in 1952. On November 2nd, he rose and told the audience that the world needed action, not only to end the fighting, but to make peace. More than 125,000 Canadian soldiers have served in the UN peacekeeping operations. Approximately 130 Canadian soldiers have died serving as peacekeepers. Since the end of the Second World War, peacekeepers have been instrumental of securing peace around the world.
With its first activity in the Middle East to monitor and uphold the ceasefire during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the United Nations peacekeeping efforts were launched in 1948. Since then, the UN has participated in 72 missions all over the world, 12 of which are still in progress. Although the United Nations Charter does not specifically mention peacekeeping, the necessary authorization can be found in Chapter 6 and 7 of the Charter. When the Cold War started, peacekeeping agreements became challenging because of the division of the world into hostile camps. The UN's founders intended for the organization to act to prevent international disputes and prevent future wars. After the Cold War ended, there were new calls for the UN to take on the role of bringing about world peace, and the organization's role in peacekeeping significantly increased. The first true example of an international peace observation force may be the League of Nations, run international force in the SAR from 1934 to 1955. After World War II, Trieste was declared an independent city-state under the protection of the UN as a free territory of Trieste, and the UN played a significant role in the conflict involving Trieste. The first UN peacekeeping mission was a group of observers sent to the Middle East in 1948 during the Arab-Israeli War. Since then, the UN Truce Supervision Organization has sent observers to a number of conflicts in the area and is still keeping an eye on the situation. A similar mission involved sending observers to the border between India and Pakistan in 1949. When North Korea invaded South Korea in 1950, sparking the Korean War, the UN was presented with one of its biggest early challenges. Before the Chinese People Volunteer Army intervened and drove the UN forces back to the 38th parallel, the UN forces drove the North Koreans out of the south and reached the Chinese border. Despite the 1953 declaration of a ceasefire, UN forces remained along the denuclearized zone until 1967, when American and South Korean forces took control. The UN Nations Emergency Force was created in 1956 as part of the UN's response to the Suez Crisis. When warring parties needed a third party to monitor the peace process, Lester Pearson proposed sending military personnel from various nations who were either unarmed or lightly armed. For establishing UN peacekeeping operations, Pearson received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1957. Most UN peacekeeping forces, including those referred to as observer missions, have been armed since 1956.
During the Cold War, the tensions on the United Nations Security Council were huge, and it made it difficult to implement strategies to contain communism throughout the USSR. The UN Peacekeepers led a mission in Cyprus during 1964. The United Nations Peacekeeping Force also assisted with 2 decolonization programs during the Cold War. In 1960, the United Nations helped facilitate decolonization of the Congo from Belgian control. In West New Guinea, from 1962 to 1963, they helped maintain law and order as they transformed Dutch control to Indonesia. In the Middle East, to stabilize oil-producing region, this is where most of the United Nations peacekeeping missions took place during the Cold War.
En 1990, après l'effondrement de l'URSS et à la fin de la guerre froide, les forces de maintien de paix de l'ONU ont été déployées dans de nombreux pays tels que la Bosnie, l'Irak, le Koweït, l'Érythrée et la Éthiopie, afin de mettre un terme aux guerres et de les empêcher. Dans les années 1990, l'ONU a recentré leur attention au génocide et au nettoyage ethnique. La violence au Darfour a franchi la frontière avec le Tchad et avec la République centrafricaine. Les forces de maintien de la paix ont été déployées pour minimiser la violence à l'égard des civils et empêcher toute interférence dans la distribution de l'aide liée à la violence au Darfour. Les Nations Unies ont également utilisé une mission unique de maintien de la paix visant à mettre fin aux guerres. Maintien de la paix visant à mettre fin aux guerres civiles dans un certain nombre de pays.
The Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the United Nations of Peacekeeping Forces in 1988. The peacekeeping forces have received this award because they had ensured ceasefires, they had enforced peace accords, and they had protected the people. During the award ceremony speech, the committee had asked those in attendance to unite together to pay the loving tribute of the 733 individuals who bravely lost their lives while serving as peacekeepers. The committee had declared that the Nobel Peace Prize for 1988 should be considered as an acknowledgement of the entirety of the United Nations organization. Secretary General of the United Nations, Javier Pérez de Cuéllar, had said that the essence of peacekeeping is the use of soldiers as a catalyst of peace rather than the instruments of war. It is in fact the exact opposite of military action against aggression, which is foreseen in Chapter 7 of the Charter. The technique for peacekeeping has already proved itself in 15 different operations all over the globe. These operations can help us cross a line of a world of international conflict and violence to a world of respect for law and authority, which overcomes belligerence and ensures justice. Peacekeeping operations symbolize the world community's will to peace and represent the impartial practical expression of that will. The award of the Nobel Peace Prize to these operations had illuminated the hope and strengthened the promise of this extraordinary concept.
We can all be peacekeepers in our own way, by reaching out to others, standing against injustice in our communities, and making this world a better place.